loud? Can anyone hear me? Hello, 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 hello. I don't want to disturb everyone's conversations, but I am conscious of the time. It has just gone 7, and we'd like to try and get going if possible. I think the first thing I'd like to say very quickly is thank you to St Mary's Church and to Sarah, where she's hiding at the back. I keep saying the wrong word. Is it installed? Aha! Newly installed last night as the Reverend here, so congratulations on that once again. But thank you for allowing us to use the space. We did this last year for the first time, changed the format somewhat, and this is the next evolution of that. Looking at the space we're in, if there is a fire, the alarm will sound, unsurprisingly. There are no tests scheduled for today, so if it does go, please depart from the building. I think there's doors there, and I think there and there as well, if I remember from yesterday. If you exit this way, please meet at the back of the graveyard, and if you go this way, head out in front of the town hall. Hopefully, we won't have any need for that information, but at least you've got it. Personal belongings. Now, I know everyone looks absolutely lovely who's here tonight, but we don't all know each other, and there have been some thefts in the area recently, so please do keep an eye on your personal belongings. Again, hopefully not of concern, but just to be aware. This year, talked about evolution. We've got additional elements this year. We've got Wallingford Radio here, Liam at the back there, who is managing all the microphones. We do have some runners who are going around with microphones as well to make sure that everyone is heard. Please raise your hand clearly so they can see to get to you. This is going to be broadcast out on the radio. We're also, I believe, going to have cut up into sections to do with topics and be putting that onto the website as well. So if there's anyone you know who can't make it tonight, they will also have the opportunity to hear the conversations we're having as we go through that. And I believe we might even have some questions from the radio listeners as well coming in. So, yes. This is technically a council meeting. And it's, I think, the only one legally we have to have. So it has quite an important relationship to council business. It will be running no longer than 3 hours. I know some people may want to get off sooner, but that is the maximum amount of time we're allowing for this. And we will have a break halfway through as well. But we're not at school. If anyone needs to step out for any reason, please do so. Yes, we've got refreshments in the corner. On your chairs, you should have some handouts. Just to cover through those very quickly, you should have a copy of the agenda. There is, it says here, the yellow-orange diagram. We refer to this as the donut of responsibility, colloquially, and it's just a bit of an overview as to which councils are responsible for which things, because we are appreciative that does sometimes get a bit lost, a bit blurred. We do actually have representatives here from the town council, from the district council, and from the county council. So we actually do have bodies in the room this year from each layer of the local council system. So hopefully that will help foster those conversations. And finally, an evaluation form is also there at the end of the meeting. We are conscious that what we're trying to do is to move the conversation forward, to evolve, to try and progress matters. We're also conscious we could always do things better. And your feedback and your cooperation in that will help us to do that, and we'll look forward to what we'll do in 2025 as well. And the final thing, actually, which isn't mentioned on here, you should see one of these per group, I believe. And this is a bit of a summary, an overview of what was raised last year and the things that have happened since then. And that's also for you to refer to as well as we go through. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, just a quick mention about civility and respect. Now, Wallingford Town Council has signed up to the Civility and Respect Pledge, and as I mentioned, this is a council meeting. It is perfectly normal for people to get passionate when you care about your home, about your environment, and it will also be perfectly normal for people within this room to have differing views as to what is most important or not important, and so on and so forth. All of those views are valid, as long as we can converse in a civil and respectful manner. And I'd like to ask your assistance in that as we go through. Finally, although it's typical for me to chair most of the full council meetings, we do things slightly different as of last year, and we've invited Nick here, Nick Sandel, who's a local resident and a professional facilitator. His job isn't to parrot the town council's views, nor is it to just sit and listen. His job is to try and engage with us, try and foster the best conversation that we can have so that we can get the most out of this. And that's probably a good time for me to sit down, start being quiet, and hand over to Nick.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan, and thank you all. So we have in front of us 6 topics. They're the same 6 topics as we talked about last year. This year we've done it slightly differently because there was some feedback that the order didn't seem right. So this time we've drawn at random the order in which we're going to discuss the events. Within the time we have, in the remaining 3 hours plus a break, we have time for 20 minutes on most topics. We have a few questions that Liam has gathered from his radio audience, and there is a live feed, so there may be some more questions. And as Dan said, this is a chance for you to make comments, to ask questions, make statements. My job is to do my best to help everybody have a chance to say their bit. If you want to speak before the mic gets there, I may sometimes restate what you've said so that everybody else can hear what your question or statement was. If I get that wrong, I apologize, but I'm trying my best to hear you and pass it. If it's a statement, we'll leave it as it is. But if it's, and we will record it between Luke and I. But if it's something that's a question that you would like directed to somebody, then between us, we will work out who is the best person to answer that question, be it at an Oxford level SODC or a Pacific town councillor who can comment. And if there's an expert in the room who has other answers, we welcome those views. So if that's all right with you, maintaining, of course, the civility and respect that everybody mentioned before, I'd like to get going. And the first topic area we have starting is with arts, culture and heritage. And that's including comments or questions about major public events and or significant buildings. Where could I, please? Just a microphone coming up behind you. There you go. Just a bit louder.
A bit louder, right? Perfect. Okay, I'll shout.
Great.
I was a presiding officer here on the 2nd of, what was it, March? No, in February, wasn't it? 2nd of March. And the turnout was 8.9%. Now, to me, that is not democracy. What did the town council get wrong?
I'm happy to take that now, or happy to take that as a question. It wasn't what I had under the topic of arts, culture and heritage, but it is...
It says major
events.
public events.
Okay.
It's a public event, or should have been a bigger public event.
Should have been a bigger event. So, can I...
Yeah, no, I was expecting this one, unsurprisingly. That by-election, that turnout in particular, was extremely disappointing. I think I was part of a small group that, in the lead up to May last year, were involved in getting the first election we'd had in 16 years happen in this town. And we got, I think, a turnout of 40.89% in May last year. So we thought, we kind of got this nailed. We understand how this works, even though it was our first time. We had some learnings, and we thought, right, we're going to take those, we're going to put those on top of what we did last time, and surely we're going to do better than you'd expect. I'm just going to very quickly cover what we actually did, and then I'm going to highlight the bits that went wrong. So, for this by-election, we had quite an active campaign to get people to stand. We managed to get 3 people to stand for the 2 spaces. And we did a lot of support in helping people to understand what the role was, how to fill in the forms, we actually went through it step by step. I did a load of videos explaining what the process was. And we then got coverage in the Wallingford Herald, in the window in Wallingford. We had a whole series of ongoing social media processes that went out. We had coverage in the monthly Town Council email newsletter. We had a dedicated page on the website for the first time containing all the information regarding the candidates and the election process itself. We then had ongoing posts from individual councillors. We did interviews with Wallingford Radio, both for ourselves and the candidates also did it as well. We then printed off leaflets that were to act as a reminder of the election, but also on the flip side of that, we got each candidate to put together a précis of who they were and what they were standing for and what they were trying to do. And we arranged for those leaflets to be distributed to every single house in town. Now, I know, without even asking any of you, that there is a difference between what that I said on that last sentence, what we arranged to happen, and what happened. That became evidently clear.
Can I just ask, have you already paid for that? Because you were done, basically, weren't you?
Yeah, so
yes.
The reason that this then becomes quite critical is back in 2019, following a by-election that happened at that point, and the finding out, A, that polling cards are not a legal requirement, and the cost of polling cards, which I believe was about £10,000 for polling cards. I don't know what it was in 2019, but that was what we were told more recently. Back in 2019, that went to full council, and there was a vote, and it was decided that that was not a useful or the best use of that money in order to promote elections and so on and so forth.
Democracy costs money.
Bear with me just 1 second, because I'll finish this point. That meant when we did it this year, we thought by sending out this leaflet to everybody, not only would do what the polling card did, but also provide more. By providing information about the candidates as well, we felt that that would give a better representation of the people standing and what we're looking at. The people that were commissioned to do that for us were paid, were provided the leaflets, and we do know that some of them were delivered. We also know some of them were delivered outside of Wallingford. There has been a failing at that point. Now, I just want to highlight a separate point on all that, because percentages. I've heard some people compare this by-election to what happened last May, when we got the 40.89, etc. Now, by-elections automatically have a drop-off compared to that. The last by-election we had was in 2019, and that was 16-point-something%. I can't remember the exact figure. So you've automatically got a smaller level of interest. Then we had the weather as it was on the day, and then on top of that, adding on the leaflets, or the lack thereof the leaflets, unfortunately, adding all that together, I'm surprised we actually got to 8%, to be perfectly honest with you. Because, as you said, people not having it through the door, and we've had quite a lot of robust feedback about that. The thing that we can do off the bat, which is what we're going to be bringing to next full council, which is a week Monday, I think it is, we are going to reverse the decision that was happened back in 2019. There is still a conversation to be had as to what's the best way of publicising and all the rest of it, but removing the handcuffs that kind of bound us this year, because we couldn't overturn the previous decision quickly enough. We would have had to go through full council and all the rest of it, and by the time they needed to know the answer, we just couldn't turn it around quick enough. By removing that handcuff, at least, we will have the choice as to what happens at the next election. And I think there is a very serious conversation to be had about whether polling cards need to come back. I can't guarantee you that, because that is a decision for the council as a whole, and that has to go through the process and has to be voted for. But yeah, it is something we've had some quite in-depth, robust conversations internally, let alone what's been coming to us from outside. So yes, I take on board, it went wrong. It wasn't good enough, and we're now going to try and work out what to do better.
Thank you. Could I take one more question? Similar topic, or?
It wasn't actually a question, just a really quick follow-up. It's really helpful for me to hear about those leaflets, which sound like a fantastic idea, and clearly the mistake was, goodness knows why and how, but it wasn't down to council decisions and planning. But given that it happened, from my personal experience, what I found superbly helpful was the fact that there was candidate information on the council website that wasn't there last time. And because it's just like, I want to vote. I'm not on social media. I'm a bit of a cave person from that point of view. So I want to vote. I want to know who to vote for. First place I looked, council website, there it was. And that was so easy and helpful. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Can I...
My next song, if I could just clarify in my mind what you said, the council paid a third-party group, person, company, a sum of money to distribute the leaflets, and that company didn't do a 100% job.
That's correct. We're currently having a conversation with them about that.
That, of course, was going to be my question as to how much of the money you're going to be getting back.
Yeah, as I say, we are in the midst of a conversation, so I'm being slightly delicate about what I say, but yes, there is a bit of a dispute as to... They are still claiming that they've done the job at this point. So we are robustly putting an alternative viewpoint across. Yeah, I mean, I imagine it would be quite low, but just as an exercise, if anyone received a leaflet for the last by-election, can you just raise your hands a second?
Can I make a point here? Please, can I make a point that surely it was up to you, having spent such a lot of money on a very important issue, to follow up?
We did, and
the job was being done.
Yeah, we did, and we were provided with GPS evidence, if you will, that the leaflets were going out and were being distributed. So we can only go with the evidence we had at that time, and obviously more and more information comes out, and as it got closer and closer, the scale of the issue got bigger and bigger, and that's kind of where we are now. Yeah.
How much did you pay?
It's a good question. About £600.
Okay. So, just going to go this way, please.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to add whatever distribution list that you have on file, is it based on window on Wallingford at all, in terms of where that goes? Because just out of interest, I find myself included, because I'm in a fairly new build, I don't think your addresses or your address lists are being updated as housing is being built, because I still don't get window on Wallingford, for example.
Are we talking about the distribution list for the leaflets?
Yeah, leaflets. Yeah.
So that was taken directly off of the
Electoral register.
The postcode National Register, yes.
Okay.
Okay. Can I... There's one over here.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd just like, first of all, going back to the agenda there about significant buildings, what's happening with the Regal Centre now? So there's been a lot of talk in the past about renovating it, getting it back to public use, but it's been sitting there vacant for many years.
So 6 months ago, there was following a meeting of the Regal working group, there was essentially a bit of a split view as to what would be the best way forward. There are some councillors who felt that the best idea would be to redevelop the site, and there was talk about that being possibly partially community-based and with accommodation or to help fund for it and so on and so forth. And there is another school of thought that the space wasn't needed, that there is sufficient space around town, that in fact as one person who's linked to one of the open spaces currently said if we redeveloped it, that it would put some of the other open spaces out of business, for example. And so there was a school of thought from some councillors that we should sell the site and redistribute those funds into other projects and into... Now, there are limitations on that, because if you sell a capital building, you can only go into capital works. It can't be used, for example, for renovation works on things like the town hall, which we desperately need to do. It was decided at that point that the two schools of thought would go away and would put together proposals as to what would be the best way forward, and that we would then bring that to a council meeting. That is scheduled for the full council meeting a week on Monday.
Okay, Thanks for that, Dan. Can I also ask what's happening to the castle at the moment? You've got the mound, which has been closed for years. It's not accessible. We used to be able to go up and down. I mean, I lived in Wallingford now for 29 years, and my children, when they were very small, used to go up and down the mound, run around, enjoy it at the top. At the moment, you know, when I'm walking my dog through Castle Meadows, all it seems to do is people nipping up there for a quick cheeky joint or whatever they get up there. I don't know.
Yeah. I may hand over, if she's willing, to Councillor Keats-Rowan, because she's more knowledgeable on this than I am. But I know there is some work that we are doing with the Earth Trust. We're getting into partnership with them about maintaining some of that land. But I'm just going to hand you over to Catherine, because Catherine's been...
As we talk about castle, can I also ask what's happening with the castle grounds, which is accessible at the moment? It used to have nice flower beds and things of that nature. That's all disappeared. And also, wonderful work done on renovations, but it's now been fenced off. I did read in the Herald that, you know, kids have been climbing up and down it, things like that, but they always have done. You know, it's a magnet for children to climb up and touch it and scramble over it, and it's a shame to keep it locked away like that.
Okay. I'm going to hand you over to Catherine, because Catherine's far more knowledgeable on this than I am.
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah, this is quite a big and complex problem. The trouble with our heritage is, well, we are blessed in Wallingford with a heritage of exceptional national importance. The sites we have here are unique. This is the only surviving Saxo-Norman town that is recognisable anywhere in the country. We have a peculiarly high density in the centre of town of scheduled monuments and listed buildings, which has made us, you know, I mean, historic England is very, very interested in us. Unfortunately, what had happened over a period of years, many years, is the monuments hadn't been looked after optimally and were put on the Heritage at Risk Register. The sites are owned or run by the town council, and it falls to us to sort the situation out. In the case of the castle, the fragment of wall we have there, which on the outside, if you like, is a wall, and on the inside was one of the internal walls of what became the College of St Nicholas. That was where resident clergy that serviced the church in the Inner Bailey lived. It's the only thing that's left. It's two ruined walls. Now, they are inherently unstable. You know, I mean, these are walls that don't connect to anything. So it's a matter of common sense that it's not a good idea to walk on them. I mean, that ought to be obvious. We've also had a very large public ground to stabilise them and preserve them as far as we can for future generations to enjoy. We are not going to get more money to do it again if people go on acting irresponsibly. And it is irresponsible to walk on a ruined wall. You're putting yourself at risk. You're also risking the integrity and the future of that monument. So it's a question of common sense. Because we need to keep that situation under control, we're going to install a security system, and until we do, and that's all to do with scheduled monument consent, it's with the Secretary of State at the moment, we have to keep the area closed off, because it would be nice to be able to rely on people's common sense and all the rest of it, sure. But unfortunately it looks like we can't. So we're keeping it as safe as we can until we've got that system in, and then we'll be able to reopen. In the case of the Mott, there's a number of things that have been going on there. For a start, the bridge, you know, the wooden bridge that gets you from the Middle Bailey over there has been in disrepair for a while, and the Mott itself has developed an instability for various reasons, which does also, one of the things is, sure. is animal ingress. So and it's become overgrown by vegetation. Now this needs to be removed. So the idea that the council has signed off, and it's going to start fairly soon, is that we will, we want to create a sort of castle experience idea, you know, walk sort of idea, so the walls that would be part of it, but access to the top of the Mott would also be part of it, you know, as part of a visitor experience for understanding the site. But we've at the same time got to start the restoration process, so that's where Earth Trust comes in, and they are going to fence off, as it were, the rest of the Mott and bring goats in to reduce the vegetation. At which point, after that's been done successfully, we will need to go back to historic England. There'll need to be some civil engineering to stabilise the structure, and then we'll put in a pathway up the slope for direct access to the thing.
Mark's team, didn't you? You used to do all that, maintain it. You know, for years you used to see the guys.
Yeah, well, they didn't, it wasn't done optimally, and so some problems have, I mean, one of the things that happened was some little picket fences were taken up or thorn bushes removed, and of course this led to instability. So we are where we are, and we're having to deal with that.
Catherine, can I just, unless everybody's, I've got some other questions on that topic. Is there a particular point?
I just want to finish answering the questions that the gentleman asked. In terms of the actual gardens themselves, we now have a very proactive parks team who is really doing an awful lot of work, and that situation is already in the process of a renaissance, if you like. So you will start to see the revival of that, and we very much hope that it will soon involve the pond being reinstated.
Perfect. Just got one question coming, I think, from the radio, is it?
It is. I've just got to come over here to read it. So we actually had two questions about the Regal, one of which was actually asking if there was any way or any intention to ask the community to help fundraise to help restore the Regal, and another one which was suggesting that, in fact, they would like the Regal to be fully redeveloped along the lines of the community centre that Dan just spoke about, ideally with one of the independent coffee shops and being able to reuse it as a forum for public debate and for public events. Not massive questions along the lines of what people have already asked, but
building on.
I think, as I said, so we have the debate will be happening a week on Monday. I think there are, as I said, two schools of thought. There are people working on both, and I think all of this will go into the mix. I'm not sure there's anything I can really contribute to that without... I'm only one council, and it'd be better for that to be a broader, proper debate in council.
Dan, I think that's fine. I mean, it's coming, and there's a proper debate. Can I just take any more? Was there any more on the election? I'm conscious there were many views, and I want to make sure we gather. Is there any more comments on the election?
To be perfectly honest, we've already had that idea.
Very good. So we've got the Scouts doing it. One more question over here on...
Thank you. Mr Mayor, going back to the subject of the Regal, are we going to get a public consultation on the Regal? It's not just going to be a town council decision, because a lot of people feel, including myself, very passionately that that building will not be demolished. So, you know, we've grown up in the town with it. It's actually a great specimen of the architecture of its time. I know it's well hidden, but we're still very fond of it, and it is the largest community room we have in the centre of town. I know the church have been very good in allowing meetings here, but we also have to remember that something like 45% of the population is not religious, and it might deter some people from attending some of the meetings.
Okay, very good. I'm going to take a question over here, but if the mic doesn't, mic's just coming over to you. Thank you. And I'm going to look, is there any more on this topic? I know there are many other topics of equal passion. I'll just take the question and then we'll come over. Okay, great. That has to be a consultation. Okay, thank you.
On the subject of heritage, the town hall building is a supreme building for this town, and it desperately needs to be looked after. What is the town council doing about that?
So I think Catherine might be the best person to answer that as well. Though I'm just very conscious that we do have other sections to get on, so we can...
Just deal with this quickly. Yeah. Again, I would encourage everybody here to keep an eye on the Town Council website, because we do lots of information about what we're up to on it. We are putting things in place for a major restoration programme for the Town Hall. It's going to cost an awful lot of money because we have to deal with the outside, but we also want to make it properly accessible inside. I mean, one of the things it doesn't have that does reduce limit its use for the community is a lift. We need to be able to get people up to the ground, Great Chamber, and all the rest of it. And you know, part of what we want to do there is to achieve something that is useful for us now. That, we have to do quite a lot of preparation work for that. It's not a straightforward thing. At the moment, we've got architects looking at it. There's a lengthy preparation thing before we can kickstart the fundraising. We will need help from the community. We will aim to raise public money, and also we really want a lot of grant funding. One of the things we need to do to pull all this off is to raise the profile of the heritage. As I've said, it's really important nationally, but not many people know that. So one of the things we are working on is bringing together all the heritage groups in the town in a partnership to create a Wallingford Heritage Trust, which will help to get all this off the ground and deliver a 17th century building fit for the 21st century, and hopefully one that will survive a bit longer.
Thank you, Catherine. So the Wallingford Heritage Trust is something that is coming. Okay.
Thanks. It's just two quick short points, hopefully. One is, it's just been said that people think that there's enough community spaces that the Regal might not be needed. I'd just like you to bear in mind, whatever you decide to do with the Regal, to bear in mind accessibility, case in point with me, obviously, and others here. But my point on that is it's been proven through Mobility Issues Group Wallingford here, we've proven that the worst accessible buildings in Wallingford are owned by the town council. So I'd just like to highlight that again tonight. And if you do go forward with the refurbishment plan on the town hall, is that going to include an external lift like Abingdon Town Hall? Okay. That'd be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
An external one is almost certainly not going to be possible to do for conservation reasons mainly. But we really do need that, and that's very much the way it works on this.
We're kind of pinning our hopes on the fact that the stairwell has moved inside, and there is a space where the old stairwell used to come up, which we're hopeful we can utilise to put a lift in.
Because aren't the stairs on the outside of the town hall?
They were added later.
They were added later, so they could be
so
switched.
there is theoretically, well, there was an old stairwell on the inside which has been covered over and so on and so forth. So,
all right.
But yeah, we need architects' advice on all of this. We're not going to on our own get work.
Can you liaise with Andrew and Wallingford Accessible Group when you're doing these consultations with the architects? Because these guys know what needs to come. They're the ones who need accessibility.
Yeah, we're going to be conveying with everyone as we can, to be perfectly honest with you. What we're talking about, first of all, is what can structurally be done. Because obviously that will guide a lot of what we want to do, is what we're allowed to and physically able to do.
I think day one should be liaising with Wallingford Accessible Group, with Andrew and his team there, because they're the guys who know.
Yeah, and as I said, we will be. We just need to find out what's actually technically possible first.
Okay. One more. Yes, of course.
Thank you. Yes, thank you to the gentleman over there. We would be glad to liaise with you on the town hall. I was going to just ask whether there was going to be a public consultation on the town hall, as the plans for it anyway.
Yeah, so I think everything's building up to a point. We're just not there yet. Yeah, it's a simple fact. I believe, and I'll be corrected if I'm wrong, we've got 2 architectural firms that have... No, we've now got the third. We were waiting for a third one to give us proposals and so on and so forth before we can start to look at the next steps.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to try and move on, unless I'm going to be unpopular for moving on. But I want to move on to a topic that everybody did want to talk about, and I just want to check, Liam, so I give time. Are there any questions on environmental sustainability? Not that many. Okay. So from the room, on environmental sustainability, which we are including new housing, infrastructure, parks, allotments, litter and open spaces. So not much to cover. And I'm going to try and do that in 20 minutes or so. Please, first question.
Yes, hello, thank you. Just before you move on to this topic, can I ask what happened to agenda item 2?
Basically, we moved on to agenda item 3, instead. So I believe, I'm not, yeah, it wasn't on my notes, and I don't think it was on Nick's notes, so...
I'll tell you what we'll do
It's
is...
on the public handout.
In between, after this topic, we will make sure that all the council introduce themselves. Thank you very much.
So I'm just looking for...
So, questions, environmental and sustainability. Statements.
Your item about air quality in town, I hope I'm wrong, but I thought I read somewhere that the air quality is no longer measuring NOx 2, and that's why we now no longer have an AQMA. Is that right?
I'm trying to think who...
No, my point is the reason we are now reaching no longer being over is because my understanding is we're no longer measuring NOx 2.
I'm sure we are continuing to be monitored. I mean, with the...
Yes, but NOx 2 is no longer being included in the monitoring. That's my understanding. And that's why we're now out of special...
Could I bring in...
Do you know, James?
James. Thank you.
Catherine, I don't know the answer to your question. I'll find out, about what's being monitored. I know we had a conversation about air quality with the officers at SODC in July last year, because the measurement period had changed or the thresholds had changed. There are two standards. One is the DEFRA standard. There's also a WHO one, which is different. But as for your specific question on NOx, I will find that out, because I don't know the technical details of that. What I know is the officers were confident enough in what had happened over the last 3 years of measurements in Wallingford, or the last 5 years, in fact, I think it was, that the same level of measurement wasn't required. We did ask extensively about that. There are several residents in the room who were part of that conversation. Forgive me, I don't remember that 7 months down the line exactly, but we'll find out about NOx definitely. And so I would like to reassure you that there are several of us working to make sure that we do keep a focus on air quality, because like many of us in here, we really value the importance of being able to cycle and walk around, let alone drive around in a safe way. And there are certain places in town where we know that there are heightened levels of pollution. And of course, we can all make a contribution to that as well. When we're at the traffic lights, we can turn our engines off as well if we're driving. So thank you for the question.
Thank you very much.
Any further?
I had one other, if
Go
that
on,
was all
whilst you've
right.
got the microphone.
I note here that the Town Council signed up for the climate emergency some years ago, and that was brilliant. I was delighted to hear it. I'm very sad, however, to see on this document that under what we're doing, you haven't actually listed anything yet.
That'd be a Catherine.
We have, thank you, Jen. We have actually done quite a bit, particularly on the biodiversity front. I mean, a lot of the work that we do that's public-facing does involve the green spaces. We have lots of local groups who help us. Wild About Wallingford is here. I think it does quite a bit. In terms of our actual properties, there are legislative requirements as to energy efficiency of the buildings that we're in, and we do comply. As things come up, we try to afford the best solutions. There is at least one of our properties we've put an air source heat pump in, wasn't there? With another property, it wasn't a really, because it was a heritage property, it wasn't really a viable solution, so we weren't able to do it there. But we do what we can. And it is high time, actually. We have thought this, as I say, a lot of work's been done, particularly on the biodiversity side of things. And we have a a standing agenda item in the Parks and Gardens Committee for this, but we need now to bring together the work that we're doing that is ongoing into a policy, as stated thing, and also, yes, I think it would be a good idea to list what we actually have managed to do, but what I think it would be good to be able to go on to do now is, particularly now that there are tools becoming available for guidance for local government on adaptation, which is the next big part of the conversation, is actually to produce here the Wallingford equivalent of the Green Living Plan that's been done in places like Tame and Henley and the local examples. But that needs to be a collaborative thing, and actually to look at things like sustainability in terms of energy and all the rest of it. And so far we haven't got the people together that can actually work constructively to help us do that.
Thank you both. I'm going to... one was over here, sorry, just by the door. Thank you.
Yes, I haven't got a question as such, but there's a theme that could come under any of these headings that I think it would be useful if the Town Council could think about. I've mentioned it to a couple of councillors individually when I met you, but it's the river, which seems to me to be part of our heritage. It obviously relates to the environment, how we might get around, health, well-being and safety, and a community facility. And obviously it contributes to the economy. And I think many of us will be aware of all that the river offers, but also some of the challenges that it poses, not least for some of us who live in the centre of town, who are recently sandbagging our back gardens. I realise that the river extends beyond the town and that there are lots of other agencies who will have an interest in it, but I sort of wonder whether the Town Council couldn't in some ways coordinate thought around how we use the river, how we protect ourselves from the river, how we sustain the river, how we use the river. And I would like to see the Town Council taking some initiative in that regard. I know that there's a meeting shortly about the splash park and the swimming pool, and I know that there has been work done recently by the Town Council in terms of trying to improve the riverside access and so on. But I just think generally we need to be thinking about it. It's actually at the heart of our town. And I'm surprised in a way that it doesn't come up more frequently. So that's really just what I wanted to mention.
Thank you very much. And unless somebody wants to respond, I'll build on that, hopefully, and come back to it if others have more comments. Please.
I'll move out round behind the pillar. No pillars in the Regal, of course, but here we are in the church. My name is Trevor Biederman from Living Streets, and Living Streets stands for Active Travel, and which is walking and cycling, and they are non-polluting, they are sustainable. Wallingford is flat, I'm sure everybody's noticed, so we can potentially put in cycleways from Benson to Wallingford to Chelsea Station. The people who do that at the moment, walking and cycling, take their lives in their hands. So there's a lot of improvement to be done, but also a lot more sharing from vehicle drivers. Vehicle drivers feel quite threatened perhaps at the moment by changes in speed and all the rest of it. So we have to reach out to them as a kind of threatened species and say to them that they need to share the road and they need to be careful with us. And the recent consultation showed with 500 people replied for the 20 mile an hour consultation for Wallingford, that there are two very separate groups. There's a group which is the majority of the consultation who are very concerned about safety of themselves and children in particular, but also a group of really quite aggrieved, often vehicle drivers who feel threatened by the change. So culturally, there needs to be change on both sides. We need to bring everybody together. So far as pollution is concerned, I absolutely share your concern that NOx is not being monitored. Diesel vehicles are the worst for NOx. Why diesel vehicles were reintroduced in the 2000s, heaven knows, to be a popular type of vehicle. The buses outside Greg's the buses will stay there and not turn their engine off. And I leave you with this final vignette of one evening. I forgot to take a photo, but there was an empty bus with the engine roaring away, and in calm conditions, pollution can be far, far worse, okay? It's all right if it's windy, but anyway, it was very polluted outside Greg's, and that's where often many, many people stand there. And guess what? The driver was standing in his own pollution, having a smoke, bless him. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to move across.
We seem to have drifted into agenda item 6. And I fully understand that there is a connection between the environment and pollution and transport. But I'd like to return to one of the subtopics, new housing. Normally in meetings like this, the new housing is a trigger for everybody, and it's quite refreshing that it hasn't actually happened that way. Thank you very much. So I'll leave you just this. Does anybody actually come from the new housing?
Okay.
How did you find your way here?
Okay, thank you. And again.
Thanks, Nick. Forgive me for going back at a topic. Regarding the river, if you don't know already, Wallingford is applying for bathing status in the Wallingford waters. That is not going to lead us to have clean water immediately. It is a step in the right direction. If you haven't responded to it, the consultation shuts on the 10th of March. So you've still got 3 days to get your views and opinions in on that. If you need any more details, do come and see me afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you. And a comment from James.
Yeah, I'll follow on from that, Len. Thank you. Jenny, addressing your points about the river, or some of them. I didn't introduce myself earlier. I'm James Barlow, one of the district councillors. First of all, what Len said, absolutely. I've got a poster here. If anybody wants to scan the QR code, you can then fill in the survey. It takes less than 5 minutes. We talked about bringing this along tonight because there may be some of you who haven't done it. It's very important if you'd like a greater chance of the river being cleaner to participate in the survey. It is very easy to do. It doesn't mean that the river will get cleaner, but what it will mean is that those of us who use the river will be informed of what the status of the quality is of the river between May and September, which is what we call the bathing water season. We didn't get to this stage last year. We need hundreds of responses that are positively supporting the bid for us to get through this phase and actually get that status. It puts more pressure on the sewage treatment works, operations at Benson directly upstream and Dorchester upstream. So that's one thing to say about the river, which you know very well. Secondly, on the 23rd of March in here, there will be, Elsa and I will be in here to talk about the Riverside Pool and Splash Pad as a joint effort between the Town Council and SODC who run that facility. Can't promise that we will change anything. We've got a contract that runs through on that until 2026. But the point is, having heard people ask about this last year, we thought it was really important to have that conversation and to allow people to bring forward ideas that might shape the contract for 2026, because those things take a long while to come to fruition, as we all know. In terms of using the river and being the heart of the town, absolutely. And we know some of us were on the riverbank in August last year as 6 teams in fact, including the Town Council, participated in the raft race. It was a great effort by Eric's Town Community Centre to try and get us to realise how wonderful the river space is for us to use more. And I know Councillor Mike Hagerman's working on blue space policies as well, in when we say blue space instead of green space, in terms of the river in the Town Council. So there is work ongoing, and it's great to have people asking about that, because I, like you, believe it is at the heart of our town. It has been for thousands of years. And then the final point, flooding and things like that. So Catherine and I have been talking about this. There is actually a flood school, believe it or not, in Cromarsh, because you know Cromarsh has got a big space about hydrology and ecology. So we're going to reach out to them and see what's possible to get some of that expertise in and talk to more people in town about it, and just see what does it mean. Catherine mentioned the idea of adaptation. The flooding is not going to get better. Let's be really clear about this. There's not an infinite amount of money to support flood defences in the whole country. I suspect if I was in central government or in OCC, Wallingford would not be top of my list for flood defences. So we need to work out what does that mean for us over the coming decades. And so part of that first step will be to talk to the Flood Management School and see from there. So watch this space. Thank you for the questions.
Thank you very much for those extra comments. You've got...
Because I'm trying to read it and listen, and I can't.
Okay.
I'm sure it can be. If it's not, I'm sure... Oh, apparently it already is.
It is on the website.
It is on the website, thank you.
Okay. Very good. Yes, please.
Just picking up a little further, if we may, on the riverside work. If we do get our clean bathing water status, which we all hope we do, of course there'll be a greater number of people wishing to use the riverside. And there's quite a lot we in Wallingford should probably do in preparation for that. Maybe providing ladders for people to get out of the water in various locations which aren't blocked by mooring boats. And providing extended posts over the winter periods so that the boats don't ride up onto the land in the same way that they have in the huge floods we've had this winter would be a great advantage. I know many of the boaters, when they come in the summer season, could do with fresh water and possibly even toilet access and various other provisions whilst we're there. And we're aware that the trees, of course, that extend on both sides of the river, but primarily on the Wallingford bank, are in desperate need of being cut back so that the flow of the river can be made. There's quite a lot we are responsible for, which we really need to catch up on if we can.
Okay, so a number of themes, a number of comments, more on the river. I am equally conscious I was trying to hold segments. Are there big topics people want to... I'll just come to you in a second, Marcus. Any big other topics in this area, please?
I don't know who's responsible for this, but there are lots of people in the town that have dogs and they walk them by the river. If you go on the way to Benson, there's lots of red boxes to put your dog poo in. There's some on the Kinecroft, there's some on the Bullcroft, but if you go the other way towards Cholsey, there are none. Why can't we have litter boxes for dog poo on that side of the town?
Who is your waste expert? I was about to say dog poo expert. That would be
quite possibly Councillor Holder, maybe?
On some of them, on
Steve,
the ones on the
for you?
Kinecroft, it says South Oxfordshire District Council.
Steve, do you want to answer this, and then I'll go to you, Marcus, and then we're going to introduce the councillors if you haven't got a guess of who they are.
I'm going to be remembered for dog poo now.
Yeah, sorry. Dog poo, Steve.
So yeah, we did. I think the issue heading south on the river, what I understand is because the land is owned by different ownership, that we have tried to look at getting bins down that way, but we haven't been able to get that through the landowners sanctioning that. But it is something the SODC are doing a bin review within Wallingford for the whole area, especially with the new developments and potentially even more dog walkers coming through. And so there isn't really we're looking at it, but it's because it's not on town council land, we can't actually do anything, and because it's not SODC land, it's all private ownership all the way down there, it becomes a bit of a challenge. The other thing that we are doing, well, I'm on dog poo just in case anybody asks the question, there does seem to be a rising social media group about the amount of dog feces on our footpaths and in the parks and things. So we are going to start in the spring a campaign from Keep Britain Tidy to just raise awareness and get the hopefully only a few % of the dog owners to just be a bit more aware and observant when they're taking their dogs for a walk, because it does seem to be increasing in that activity not being very pleasant for those that use the parks and the footpaths with their children.
Thank you.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Perfect. Marcus.
I just wanted to actually, Councillor Harris, by the way, just going back to agenda item 2. So I just wanted to really actually talk about Steve and the Parks and Gardens team, the amazing work they've been doing over the last 2 or 3 years with Scott at the helm now. And specifically the 2 new areas that Steve pointed out to me in my first year as mayor, and scruffy, dirty sort of areas. The one that's down opposite Waitrose, which was very, very tatty at the time, and then specifically the one down by the bottom car park. Steve had a vision for that, and he and Scott worked furiously on it, and having now seen the outcome of those 2 little spaces that I just thought were just abandoned waste spaces, are now beautiful little gardens. So just wanted to say thank you to you and the Parks and Gardens team for fantastic work bringing wasted areas back into park usage for the community.
Very good, thank you. So with that, to reverse back to point 2 of the agenda, we're just going to have a quick moment to...
Sorry, a question for Councillor Steve. My understanding is the footpath between St Leonard's Church and up to the new bridge is the Thames Path, not owned by the private landowners. In any case, it's a public footpath, so we should be entitled to put a dog bin down that path. Now before, years ago, it was outside the boundary of Wallingford, that new bridge, which is why we couldn't do anything about it. There is a bin on the zigzag path going up to the bypass, but I can't see any reason why we can't, and the person, I'm sorry, who put that question forward, is absolutely right, that is a popular dog walk between St Leonard's Church and the new bridge, and we ought to, as a town, be providing more bins for the users down there. We cannot complain about dog poo in this town unless we provide enough bins for them to dispose of the bags.
If I can respond to that, I'm a volunteer with the Thames Path National Trail, and one of the areas that I monitor is between Wallingford and Molesford. So I do walk that stretch quite a bit. The Thames Path National Trail runs on a public footpath, which is the responsibility of the County Council to maintain. So Pete Sudbury, who's here tonight, may be able to talk about what to do with the surface, the condition of the path, the new footbridge and that sort of thing. But the land is still owned by the people who have gardens that go down to the river. So Steve is quite right to say that it's the landowners who are preventing anything like dog poo bins to be put up. And so people will have to take their dog poo bags home with them. It's easy to do. One of the, at Bradford's Brook, that's an Environment Agency bridge, and then the little footbridge further on, which was replaced last year, is owned by the County Council, and that was replaced by the County Council's Countryside Access team.
For information to continue, and Steve has taken forward some extra details. I'm keen to keep the agenda moving forward, so I'm going to not look around for any more questions. Instead, I'm going to pass it back to Dan.
Yeah, and apologies for missing the introductions earlier. So it probably makes sense, obviously starting to hear from different voices around the room, it probably makes sense just to take a step back a second and just introduce who those voices are. For those who don't know me, my name's Daniel Beecham. I am a councillor, been on since 2020, and I've been the mayor since last year. If I work my way round, got Councillor Hendry. Rather than taking the mic, if you'd like to stand up just for a moment. Councillor Hendry's a Wallingford Town Councillor. Is there anything you want to introduce about yourself quickly? Or?
So I'm Chair of Planning. I also chair jointly with Wendy Tobit here. Oh, sorry, right. I'm Chair of Planning, and I'm also joint chair of the Wallingford Neighbourhood Plan with Wendy Tobit here.
Thank you. And then we've got Councillor Hughes, just here.
Oh, hello. Councillor Hughes. I was about to say 2 daughters at Wallingford School, one of them has gone to university, so just 1 daughter at Wallingford School now. I'm the Vice Chair of Planning and I'm the Vice Chair of Finance and Property.
Okay. We've got Councillor Hoskins, Mark.
Hello, as Dan says, Mark Hoskins. I'm on planning, properties and finance. I've got an interest in twinning and transport. I think that's most of my things.
Well, then we're going to just go behind you. We've got one of our newest councillors, Councillor Pannett.
Good evening, Len Pannett. I'm still shiny, so I'm fresh out of the box, still learning my way, but economic development is the area that I'm hoping to focus on. Thank you.
And then on to Councillor Charter.
Hi, I'm Ailsa. I'm Vice Chair of Personnel and I sit on the Tourism and Economic Development, and I work closely with James and Steve on sort of environmental things, and as James said earlier, we're picking up a conversation on the Splash Park and the Riverside Pool in 2 weeks.
And then Councillor Sandal.
Hi, my name's Christine Sandal. I'm the other newbie. My interests are environment, sustainability, and also children and provision of youth services.
And I will grab that from you, just to pop back. Councillor Ibrahimji. Oh, beat me to it.
Hi, my name is Mahmood Ibrahimji. I was elected to the council last year. I previously worked in private sector and learning the ropes of local authority and how it works. I'm on a number of committees, including house, planning, finance, tourism, and in fact parks and allotment. And I've got a lot of teachers who are showing me how to deal with the matters.
And then we'll go to Councillor Holder.
Yep. My name's Steve. I'm not only responsible for dog poo bins, but also parks, gardens, allotments, and all of our open spaces. That I chair that committee, and also chair of the Bullcroft working group, which is looking at the redevelopment of that area.
Okay, mentioned there was a Councillor Hoskins earlier, but we've also got a Councillor Hoskins, Jackie.
Hello, I'm Councillor Jackie Hoskins. I was appointed in May. I chair the Tourism and Economic Development Committee. I'm also on the Personnel Committee, and I'm involved with a lot of events that are going on in the town and quite a few of the working groups.
And then we'll go through to Councillor Harris.
Right, hello. Marcus Harris, Councillor Harris. I have the honour of being the immediate past mayor, so I nickname myself Mayor Emeritus, but that's not my surname. I'm also chair of the Personnel Subcommittee, and with all of the ex-mayors who are still on the council, part of the Civic and Ceremonial Committee that just looks at the way we react to big events, which we had quite a few of over the 2 years that I was mayor. So that's me.
Sorry. Councillor Lester.
Good evening, everybody. Right, I'm the longest standing mayor, whether I am councillor, been mayor twice. Yeah, I'm on every subcommittee except finance, and that's about it, really.
Councillor
I love the town.
Councillor Margarito.
Hi, Diana Margarito, new councillor appointed last year in May. I'm on various working groups as well as the Tourism and Economic Development Committee. Thank you.
And then we'll go to Councillor Keats-Rowan, who has a dual hat. Oh, have I missed someone?
Just Mike.
Oh, sorry, Mike. I'm terribly sorry.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Mike Akerman. I'm on various of the committees, like everybody else, tourism, economic development, parks and gardens, and planning. I worked for 35 years at the Centre for Ecology and Hydrology, so I'm trying to use those bits of expertise. And two things that have come up have been about the river and recent floods. So I've been trying to help the people down at Lower Wharf and connect with the flood school, which has already been mentioned, which is at Hydraulics Research in Cromarsh. And on the ecological side, I'm putting together a biodiversity action plan for the town. And a lot of that is not necessarily creating new actions because there's so much going on, but it's about connecting with everybody who's already doing fantastic things in the town towards enhancing and biodiversity recovery. So I'd really like to hear from anybody who would like to contribute to that action plan. I've been going around all the organisations, individuals that I can think of, but I'm bound to miss people. So if anybody wants to contribute to a biodiversity action plan for the town, please come and tell me.
Thank you. And going back to Councillor Keats-Rowan, as I said, has a dual role.
Yep. Can you hear me? Town Councillor, I'm not on tourism, but apart from that, I'm on all the committees. I chair the Bullcroft Trust. I tend to abandon, unfortunately, planning these days because I sit on the planning committee at SODC because that's my other hat. And they often conflict in terms of the days of the week. I have a strong interest in heritage, obviously, but I'm also interested in getting the best out of the town by using it to develop us in other ways. So there's quite a big agenda there, quite an exciting agenda, which we'll all be getting involved in at some point or the other. I also have a strong interest in community health, and have done for years. I've worked with the health services on various sorts of health research as a patient-public inputter. I forget what the technical terms they use for us, but there are some very interesting things happening at the moment, and the new way of delivering community care involves very directly local government. And that's one of the roles I have as a district councillor, is to sit on the Health Oversight Scrutiny Committee. And several of my interests are actually all coalescing quite nicely. I was today at a meeting. There's a new OCC and health service-led project on healthy ageing and how we're going to manage all that. I did recently launch what is going to be a network for the dementia-friendly Wallingford. So anyone who's interested in helping with that, I'd very much like to hear from.
If I can then go back.
Just want to do something I forgot to mention earlier is how successful we were at the last round of the local elections to recruit. By now, I think over 50% of the councillors are newly elected since we had the last elections last year. So it's wonderful to see such a new group of faces here around the table. So once again, welcome all the new councillors. So that was all I wanted to say.
And on to Councillor Barlow from District Council.
Yes, James Barlow, one of our two ward councillors for South Oxfordshire District Council. I'm passionate about our community, that's why I stood. I really want to help us drive the soft infrastructure of our town and beyond. That will stand us in good stead for what we're facing into in terms of one of my other passions, which is our resilience when it comes to climate change and the environmental challenges we're facing. So those who haven't met, I look forward to meeting you. Catherine and I are in here pretty much every 6 weeks or so doing a Meet Your Councillor session, so please do come along and talk to us about absolutely anything. Nothing is off bars. Thank you.
And finally, at the back, we have our County Councillor, Councillor Sudbury.
I'm Pete Sudbury. I was elected at a by-election in 2019 and re-elected in 2021. My first job is to bat at county level for the Town Council and the Whitnams and Brightwell Parish Councils. I'm also Deputy Leader of the County Council, and I have cabinet responsibility there for climate change, environment and future generations, and also things like minerals and waste and footpaths, of which there are a staggering 3,000 miles in this county.
Okay. So that gives you a brief overview of the councillors in the room. There are some other people, and we may actually lean into some of the expertise of that this evening as well. If you don't get a chance to speak to them this evening, all contact details are all on the websites. We've all got our phone numbers, emails, etc. So if you don't get an opportunity today, that doesn't mean you can't talk to us. Please do. That's basically how we learn what needs to be done. So anyway, I'm going to hand back to Nick.
Very good. So I'm going to give you the tempting offer of a break in 20 minutes, but I am going to try and get one more topic done, and that is the topic of getting around. So, getting around, covering traffic, I'm sure accessibility. We have got a few, I'll come to you in a second, at the back of the room, but anybody want to kick off? Please. Just shout if you can.
No, thanks. Cheers. I just wanted to ask, I'm not sure if it's something from the rumour mill, I don't know how I heard about it, can't remember, but is there an update or anything about a zebra crossing by Lidl? And, oh good, that's not just a rumour then. And also, along with that, I mean it's personal for me because I use the route every day, but the turning into Borough Avenue, drop curbs just on that, if it's around the same area in terms of crossing a road there and people coming from more residential into industrial and obviously Lidl, if there's an update about all of that.
Yeah, I'm going to bat this one over to Councillor Sudbury.
Yeah, the zebra crossing by Lidl is one of the things I must have bashed on about more than almost anything else. To give you an idea about how hard it is to get zebra crossings, there is one going to be built at Brightwell, and it took me 3 years to get that agreed, and it's 18 months, and it's still not been put in. There is a rumour that there was supposed to be a zebra built there, and somebody at the county council, instead of putting 50,000 for the cost, put 5,000, and Lidl handed that over, and then there wasn't enough money to build it. And I have been bashing away at that, and I will continue to bash away at that, and I am really stubborn. So at some point, there will be a zebra crossing there, probably before I'm dead.
Thank you.
Probably another question for you, Councillor Sudbury. The traffic speed limit between Wallingford and Cromarsh, you go from a 20-mile-an-hour limit. Over the bridge it's 30 miles an hour, and then you go straight back into a 20 mile an hour. And it's also cyclists have priority on the bridge, so why is it 30 miles an hour?
It's either cock-up or conspiracy, and I suspect it's the former. I suspect that there is probably a different bit of legislation that covers the bridge, and so somebody has to pay £3,500 to do a court order to get the bridge limit changed. Something like that. You wouldn't believe, you couldn't write some of this stuff, but it's true.
When that was raised, I raised it with the team at OCC when we did the last consultation, and they said that it would be picked up and changed when the rest of Wallingford, on the outcome of that consultation, would be changed. I'd be interested to hear from Councillor Sudbury when those changes are proposed to take place, because Brightwell's been done, partly, still says 50 on the road and 40 on the roundels, which does that default it to national speed limit if they're conflicting bits, but...
So right, this is work in progress. I got an email, I think, earlier this week saying that the roundels around Brightwell are being done. One of the things that delays them is you can't do them on wet roads, and the roads have been mostly wet. The 20-mile-an-hour limit, we have a meeting on Tuesday, walking the bits that were argued about after the last consultation up Hithercroft and out towards Brightwell, and to finalise the agreement with the officers exactly where the 20 goes, and then it will go into the list of works to be done. So it would be within the next 6 months probably. It depends. I don't have oversight of the queue, but there are over 100 villages now that have had 20 miles an hour done, which incidentally was a motion I put through County Council. It was one of the first things. It was in fact the first time I ever thought being a politician might be useful.
Sorry. Councillor Sudbury, Linda Bowyer, Speedwatch. Could I kindly ask that, as a representative of OCC, that Speedwatch and their data can be included, because obviously we are stakeholders in this insofar as all the work that we've been doing the last 10 months or so, and have particularly highlighted absolutely voracious speeding on those areas of Wallingford that have been actually omitted from that consultation. So I know you've got my details. I will send another email to your County Council website this evening. If you can kindly pick that up and involve us as stakeholders in that process, I would really appreciate that. Thank you.
Of course.
I would be keen to take some from the radio, if I could.
Certainly. So we've got about 4 or 5 things on this topic. The first one, just taking them in the order we got them on, was basically asking for an update regarding managing the illegal parking in the town square and the other areas nearby, including St Leonard's Square, which makes it challenging for buses and lorries to navigate all of the turnings. Yes, it's basically asking about the illegal parking and how it's being managed in the town square.
Okay, that's one. Let's take all 4.
That there was naturally being a public submission process, some people pushing back against the 20-mile-an-hour zones, which I can't read out. There was a suggestion about making the town centre pedestrianised. Again, people then pushing back against that being possibly interfering with the traffic further. And there was one person who got in touch about 20 minutes ago, which it was asking, the entire question was what's happening with regard potholes, which I appreciate probably covers about 4 or 5 different departments.
No, that's very good. But let's start thinking at the top. Parking in the town square. Which councillor feels best able? Go, Pete.
Right. It may not surprise you to know that it's quite difficult to recruit parking wardens, and that is the major reason why it isn't enforced as much as it could be. Because, interestingly, there are places which don't want it enforced, and Wallingford does. So every time someone says there's some spare, I've said send it to Wallingford, because we really do like parking enforcement. If anybody wants to do parking enforcement, get in touch with me and I'll put you in touch with the team. So that's the first one. The second one
was 20 miles an hour, which I think we've covered in...
Yeah, 20, that's fine, yes.
Town centre pedestrianisation, a bigger topic.
Interesting. Almost the first conversation I had with Marcus when I was first elected was that certainly it would be nice if we could pedestrianise that end so that people don't drive through but drive around and can drop off here but don't stop. I have had on my list, and I'm getting closer to getting some senior officers to get here and walk around with us and help us to plan things like where you'd put a one-way system and all the other things that you might want to do. There's a whole stack of stuff that we could do, and after only 5 years I now know enough people to be able to get the right ones in a room, I think. And what was the other one?
So that is something that may that is a pending thing that has to come from your level. Okay.
The evidence is actually pretty clear that when you pedestrianise the centres of towns, they get more alive and not less.
Okay.
They thrive.
So there's views of it would tell the council. I just want to gather the other ones for the sake of all listening. The other people said, I heard over here other views. We just wait for the mic. We'll just wait for the mic. Just come here, Michelle.
In similar towns, in similar market towns, and we've got such a it has, in my opinion, and I think it's fairly general, in similar market towns in this country, and I agree entirely with Councillor Sudbury over there, that it livens the town, it brings trade in, it would bring newcomers in. It's been at the weekends we have lots of visitors, and people would enjoy visiting all the. Hopefully there'll be more independent shops.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So, and if we're going to turn the buses away,
Yeah.
how are people going to get into Wallingford?
Okay.
I appreciate other towns do things differently,
Yeah.
but we are talking about Wallingford.
Okay.
Yes, well, I think we have to envisage the future. We have to envisage younger people coming in, the vibrancy that younger people and families will bring into the town, and also... Yes, they will. If the car parking
can I
is
say,
looked at.
we've got those 2 points. I just want to gather some other points from behind. So thank you. 1, 2, and I do appreciate we're coming back to you in just 1 second. I'll just say on this side.
Well, just to change the subject slightly, but it's to you, Councillor Sudbury. Parking. For those of us who do have cars, we have to park them somewhere. And for those of us who live in the town centre, parking is very, very restricted. I raised this at the annual meeting last year. We did a survey in our locality about resident parking. We're keen to look at that in conjunction with other issues about car sharing and using the electric vehicles and all of those sorts of things. But when the parking attendants are in town, they do tend to come down our end, and a lot of the residents get tickets because we can't park. So some sensible scheme, and it's a whole year. I've emailed quite a few times and had no follow-up, even though at this town council meeting last year it was suggested that there would be some action. So.
It might be you. I've seen an email from. I went back, I couldn't find it. Yes. So resident parking is a difficult one because there isn't enough room for all the cars that people want to park. You are right that. So one of the things that we do need to do is we need to start thinking about how you use the car club instead of having a second car. If we could replace the second car with car clubs, we might have a chance of having enough parking for all the people who live here. We do need to work out how you do. We did get some spaces allocated to residents, but it's quite hard work to do. But I'm quite happy to meet you. I'll talk to you at the break and get your number, and we'll get on this.
Can I take, please? Sorry, Mike, just coming over.
Well, my issue again is car parking, and it's all very well talking about pedestrianisation. We're talking about visitors to the town. We're talking about tourism. It needs careful thought, because pedestrianisation, whilst very good for the people experiencing, I'm of the same view. You've got to get people here, and people are inherently lazy when it comes to transport. Yes, they will get on a bus if you're senior or with children, but I think it's a dangerous precedent to even think that people will come to this town, enjoy the leisure, the river, the shops, the tourism, the museum. No car parking. Where do you park for the museum? The railway, okay, you've got Hithercroft. We've got so many things this town has got. No car parking, whether you're a resident or a visitor.
Understood. Thank you. I'm going to take just one more. I do want to go over this side of the room. I will come back. Please.
I just wanted to go back to...
It's just coming on.
I just wanted to go back to the pedestrianisation thing. From an access point of view, it would improve access massively, because pedestrianisation would mean that everything was on one level, which would mean that more shops could have temporary ramps, because at the moment you can't have temporary ramps because the pavements are too narrow. It would reduce issues with the narrowness of pavements. When I go down a pavement, people have to walk in the road so that I can go there. And in places down by the George Hotel, it's barely wide enough for a wheelchair. It's almost dangerous. And it would just make access so much easier, because we can't make the pavements wide enough. We can't make the pavements any wider. We can't move the buildings. Pedestrianisation would be a huge boon for access. The other couple of things I wanted to say were, we have been made aware of there's lots of A-boards blocking pavements in some areas, and also one of our members brought to our attention that when the town centre is closed, or on market days when we have stalls in the town centre, some of those stalls are blocking the dropped curbs, and that's affecting access.
Anybody, particular council member, wants to take that point about, particularly about maybe drop curbs? I think the pedestrianisation is an extra point. Is there anybody who can talk about drop curbs and on market days?
I think, talking more broadly about pedestrianisation, I think one of the things to be aware of, we're all using that term quite broadly, and it actually means different things to different people. So I've had conversations with different people where the idea of pedestrianisation would mean the complete pedestrianisation of the whole town centre. As Councillor Sudbury indicated, there's other people who've thought maybe we try to reduce people who are just using Wallingford as a throughput, and actually we just pedestrianise a section which would reduce the number of vehicles. There was another theory about just taking sections of it, or turning bits into one-way streets, or so on and so forth. So I think there is a danger that when we're all talking about pedestrianisation, we might all be talking about slightly different things, full stop. And I think if we're going to be going down that route, there's a lot more investigation and analysis of traffic flow, etc., that needs to happen before we can even put an idea forward. So I think just from that point more generally, regarding the drop curbs, I'm not aware as far as the market's concerned, but obviously the market is something that is booked via the town council, so I'm sure that we can have a look at that, because that's something that we perhaps have a bit more control of than other sections of this conversation. I think Councillor Sudbury wanted to...
Yes, Councillor Sudbury, and then I'm very acutely aware, I'll come to you. Just one second, I'll just let Councillor Sudbury say...
So yeah, the pedestrianisation, as I define it, would be of just that end, not of the whole of the town centre. But what we need is a plan. We need to get together, and I have mercilessly cajoled officers with the fact we have a really good town council here at the moment, really high class, and now's the time to sort out how the middle of Wallingford works. I've also used the fact that we are very closely connected to Didcot, and Didcot is busy doubling in size. And so if you don't do something, you get loads of traffic from Didcot coming through here. So there are a lot of reasons why Wallingford at the moment is important. And anything that we did, we would consult on first. In fact, we'd have to. It would be a statutory responsibility to consult on it.
Thank you. Can I just, whilst you're there, potholes? I'm sure that's your responsibility.
Okay. Among the slightly more crazy things that you learn when you get to the county council is that it would cost about 40 to 50 million a year just to keep the roads in Oxfordshire, the 3,000 miles of them, in the state they're in. And the amount the government gives us has been progressively cut. It's now 40 million a year. It's now 15 million a year. So, and nobody has an end game. No one has a plan on this. This has been going on for 10 years now. And you think, well, isn't the end game that all the roads fall apart? And the answer is yes, it is, and nobody has an answer. And it's made a lot worse by the fact that, in fact, one of the first things I did when I got to the council, the first meeting I was at, I spoke out against Oxford, the SODC plan that had 40% or 40,000 houses built around here. I hadn't thought at the time that one of the things it does is wear the roads out quicker, but it does. And the way our planning system works is that actually new housing never really pays for itself. It doesn't pay for new sewage works, it doesn't pay for repairing roads or anything else. And so I can't give you a hopeful answer because actually the levers are not in the hands of the county council.
So, no joy. Okay. One question
Just-
here, and
just
then
also-
I am being summoned to a break in 1 second.
Just two online people also voicing support of investigating the pedestrianisation.
Yep, thank you. Please.
This isn't really a question, it's just a comment, because, and it dips over into development. For every 1,000 houses you build around Wallingford, you get 2,000 new cars, and that can't possibly help with congestion. But nobody ever seems to mention this. Very few people have less than 2 cars, especially on a new building estate.
Yes.
Section then, just with a quick anecdote about potholes. On the road where I live, there was quite an extensive, quite a large pothole that had been there seemingly for quite some time. And you hear quite a lot that you should log everything on Fix My Street. Go on the website, go on the app, and that's what you should do. So I went on to do it, and I found it had already been logged and had been for some time. But what it didn't do, it didn't have any photos or anything else. So I added a photo, added some dimensions, and so on and so forth. And within about a week, I actually received a notification to tell me that it had been filled in and been repaired. As I was walking down, I was a little bit surprised then to see that it hadn't, and it was still there, and it was still fully a hole. Forward another day, no notification, and suddenly the hole had been filled in. Now, I say this because I think sometimes when we look at things like Fix My Street, and it is a bit glitchy, and it doesn't quite notify you as it's supposed to, or things, we kind of think, therefore, that nothing is working. But using that as an example, the hole did get filled in, it did work, and the more information that was put in seemed to actually prompt it to get done sooner. I'm not saying that will fix all the holes or all the problems, but the more that we can do to feed into the system to help it, the better it seems to work. Though getting a notification to tell you it's been fixed before it's actually been fixed kind of puts you in a bit of a distrustful mood. But yeah, just a small bit of personal experience.
Can I just ask you, you say the pothole was filled in. Do you mean it was repaired or filled in?
As in...
Properly
looked,
repaired,
I'm not
cut
sure.
out, undercut, dried out, filled in, tamped down? Or
I
was it
wasn't
just
there when
somebody
they did
tapping?
it, and I'm not an expert on road repairs, but it looks like a proper repair, yes.
That's probably the only one in the area then.
So I'm going to is it building on?
Just picking up on the need for proper parking. As we said, we're a historic town. We've got a lot of development. Many of the developers who are coming into the centre of town are pledging that they will build and only sell to people who don't have cars. It's just unrealistic. It won't happen. We're in a desperate short need of proper parking, particularly in the Goldsmiths area. We need a grown-up managed process for being able to understand the parking implications. Good example of that was over a year ago now, the County Council consulted on whether they should insert a residence parking bay in Castle Street. They completely ignored the consultation feedback, put the residence parking bays in and limited it to only a very few houses who actually oversee the area, and it'll take at least another year before they'll review their decision and extend the areas to include the other houses who contributed months and months ago in a request for parking, residence parking. If this is happening in other places of town, we're just reducing the parking constantly and making it more and more difficult for the people who actually live in the town and keep the town alive.
Thank you. So, two things. There's a neighbourhood plan to comment on, and there's the opportunity to meet the team who are here to talk about the neighbourhood plan, and there's coffee and tea and biscuits in the corner. I'm going to try and get us going again in 20 minutes, which gives us a chance to have a good 20 minutes on each of the next 3 topics. Thank you. Going. I can't do that. We are going to start again, but we're going to start with an AOB question that doesn't quite fit into these topics, but somebody came to ask me this question and it did come from the radio beforehand. So if I could ask, question at the back. It's just coming on. Liam, are we good?
Yeah.
Get far away.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yep.
In my world of work, timing is everything. And it just occurred to me that as this is the only legally required meeting of the council, it seemed a bit odd to me, given that you're required to hold the meeting any time before the 1st of June, that the date of this meeting predates the announcement or the setting, or I think it's probably already been set, of the council tax levels for the town, the district and the county. And my point is, because this meeting is in advance of the notifications that we will get dropping on your doormats in early April, I think, there's no opportunity to discuss the levels of council tax at town, district and county level. And it seems to a cynic might say, well, isn't that avoiding having a discussion about council tax?
So as an honest, complete, there is no correlation between the two. Just to put that straight out there. Trying to find a date which doesn't conflict with any other meetings, any other events, when the majority of councillors are available, that doesn't conflict with school holidays and so on and so forth. It really narrows down the amount of dates that we've got available. Then the actual availability of the hall itself, of the church itself. There's a whole plethora of things that really narrow down as to what's actually available. And I think the other thing I'd say is, I appreciate that the focus is there on that question is about the council tax, but that is only one element of everything that we're trying to talk about tonight. So it's not as if that is the only thing that we're here to talk about. The other thing I'll say is, while this may be the only meeting that we're legally required to hold, I think I've already mentioned it several times, the next full council is a week on Monday. There'll be another one next month. There'll be another. So there are numerous opportunities which are all open meetings, and we do invite people to come along to those meetings. There is the opportunity for public participation in those meetings. There's a bit at the beginning. So it's not hiding away. There will be multiple opportunities for people to come to those meetings, to convey their views, their thoughts, and so on. So, yeah, definitely no correlation.
Public participation at the full council meetings, but I can't remember any time in my life seeing a local, a full council meeting with this number of people, members of the public present. So my point is about, you know, we can't have a discussion about the level of council tax because we don't know what it is.
Again, but for this year, that was not a consideration, a factor for the deciding of the date. If we were to add that in as another consideration, which we can do, and if everyone here feels that that is appropriate and we put it on the feedback and we will look at that for 2025, for example, we again are then shrinking the window within which we're able to hold this meeting, which with all the other limitations makes it even harder to get a date when everyone can turn up to have that conversation. So Councillor Sudbury has got a point there on that.
Just while the microphone's getting to Pete, if I could just ask everyone to, they're not magic wands, if you could hold the microphone close to your face, just because we're fighting the bells as well and everyone wants to hear what you're saying. So,
I just, among the things you may not know that are also unbelievable is that the government doesn't actually trust county councils or district councils to set their own council tax, so it tells us what we're allowed to do. And makes it clear that that's what they expect. And that's the way it's been for years.
Okay, I'm going to... another comment on... Yeah, just... Yeah, go.
If Wat Tyler was on the ballot sheet, I'd vote for him.
Thank you. Comment here, or are we onto this topic or onto the next...
On the same topic.
Same topic, yeah, sure.
It's just a suggestion, but perhaps the council could now put next year's date for the annual meeting in place book the venue and make sure that the councillors a year ahead are actually all available?
Interestingly enough, this is a conversation that happened when we were deciding this year's one, and we do have a date penciled for next year already. I can't remember what the date is or what day it is, but again, feedback forms under chairs, please. Yeah, it's all helpful.
Very good. We're going to move on to the fourth topic, which is health, well-being and safety, including antisocial behaviour and crime. We don't have a representative from the police here, but we have some comments that we can bring into bear from them from prior years, if needed. Any questions or topics? Yes, please. Health, yes. Can we just have... there we go. Thank you very much.
So there are just 2 points I want to raise. We're going to be getting a new medical centre in Wallingford. Not quite sure when, but I hope that it has expanded facilities and expanded technology and expanded staff as well. People are so important. The downside of having one good centre is that people out in neighbourhoods, I think of new estates, old parts of Wallingford, centre of Wallingford, they lose. And what I would like to see is the setting up of things I would call mini health hubs. You know, you could have, and by health I include everything. I include audiology, opticians, dentists, whatever. Again, it probably comes down to a planning sort of issue, but it probably also needs a change in culture, that we put together all the health-oriented things, and we could have in the market square. I mean, in times past, there used to be GPs in the market square. We could have a GP now in the market square. Not there necessarily all the time, or maybe even a very expert nurse, because I do believe in nurses. So I would just like to promote the idea of mini health hubs, one for each neighbourhood.
Thank you very much. We'll take that as, unless there's anybody, do you have a dedicated health liaison?
I guess Catherine, or Councillor Keater-Owen would probably be the one who's been in conversation regarding the new doctor's surgery.
Yeah, the big problem is in terms of the new GP, they want a new site because they're too small where they are, because they are taking on these new roles, and a lot more will be happening in these because they simply don't have the room to operate as well as they want to and need to, given the increase in population where they are. So we're moving them. The trouble, there are some ideas about, for example, small community mental health hubs are something that they've been trying to set up dotted around the county. They haven't quite placed, last I heard, the one for South Oxfordshire, which could be here theoretically. The trouble is, though, with the primary care networks, the bigger ones, it'll all be on one site. Because of the way the thing has been set up by the Department of Health and the way it's funded, that's it. You can't have lots of satellites. I mean, this is something people frequently say, but it isn't going to get funded. It's bad enough trying to extract money to actually build and maintain the new things. You are simply not going to get anything else. So I suggest you don't waste your energy on that. I mean, things, there will be other smaller opportunities, but things, actually, when it involves GPs, it ain't going to happen. There isn't the money.
So the point is recognised, and I think we will see if we can build on it. On health?
I'd just like to say, in terms of that's better, isn't it? In terms of communication and information, I'm the chairman of the Wallingford Medical Practice Patient Participation Group, and there are 3 other members, Jackie, Linda, and very expert, of course, Catherine too. and we will have an AGM. So once a year we do a meeting a bit like this, and that's going to be on the 16th of May, and it will be advertised in Window on Wallingford and Netflix, etc.
And also the fact that you can actually have a stake in this helped because all patients registered with the practice are automatically members of the PPG. So as part of the committee, we represent your patient voice. So we're the catalyst between the patients and the practice. So you actually, without knowing it, actually have a vested interest in being able to shape the policies that we deliver. Tell us what the practice is doing well, tell us what they can improve on, and that's how we work. So 16th of May, between 6:30 and 7:30 at the practice. So this is an early indication. It's not going out yet. Literally finalised it this afternoon. So with Trevor, our chairperson. So there will be tickets, free tickets that will go out. There'll be a QR code on the poster and everything. So you can either view a quick link or a QR code and get your free ticket. But watch out for the WOW magazine for April and for May. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Any more, so that was health, things on crime.
I don't know if you've seen, but there is a gentleman called Chaudhry Abbas who is trying to set up an independent pharmacy in Wallingford. His case is before the NHS at the moment, the ICB. He's set up a survey. He's not a great user of social media, but he finally figured out how to get a petition onto Facebook. It's a page that's called Additional Wallingford Pharmacy. But there are, if other people want to do it another way, through online links or via a Word doc or something, that is possible. The details are on his Facebook page. If anybody doesn't use those things and wants to actually use a PDF version, I can supply that, and I'm quite happy to take them in and pass them on to him. But we need as many responses as possible. We're not getting a brilliant service from Boots. Yeah, it's a bit too late for that because his case is already there, and we've got a fortnight to get as many responses as possible. I mean, I've heard a lot of people in support, but we actually need that to be in writing for him. So I'm happy to be a conduit if anybody wants. Or otherwise, look at that Facebook page. And there was he did have an article in the Oxford Mail recently, and there was a Google link in there, so you can actually Google it and find the Oxford Mail page with the link on. But pass the word.
We'll make sure as part of the outcome of this meeting that we make that very clear, that page and the ways to share that information. Next, any more crime, health, well-being?
No experience, but I was just wondering, do you have any crime on the Kinecroft at night, or is it relatively safe?
Any insights, crime on the Kinecroft at night?
I'm not aware of there being a big issue, but we do seem to have waves of antisocial behaviour in particular. Not necessarily confined to any one area. It seems to be in an area that there's focus on it, and it seems to move around a bit. But I'm not aware of it being a persistent, consistent issue.
Is the Kinecroft public land?
So the Kinecroft is owned by the town council with public rights of way across it.
Okay, so you are allowed to move on antisocial behaviour?
Yes, so the police would be the primary movers of that, yes.
So the reason I'm asking is we're on the Highcroft estate, and recently we're not sure because all of this is new to us. It's been mentioned that the park is public land, in which case if there was antisocial behaviour, nobody would be able to do anything about it. As I say, we're not sure that is actually the truth, but it has been said.
My understanding, and I'm happy to be corrected by anyone else, there's obviously a line from when something becomes, I don't know, rambunctious to being antisocial. And I think, I'm not sure that I'm necessarily the best guide as to where that line stops and starts. I think the important thing in most of this is, if it feels wrong, is to contact the police. I mean, it's their job. We do seem to be getting more of a presence lately than we have had for quite some time. We have been talking to them quite a bit, trying to increase the presence in town and so on and so forth. They're not always here, and I'm sure enough people have had issues where they prefer a quicker or a stronger response, but they are listening, and they are... The other thing, and I think this comes up every year as well when we talk about police, is they are incredibly stat-driven. So the more that people report it, the more that it gets fed in. If there is consistent issues with an area, the more that it's fed in, the more likely they are to look into it as well.
So at the moment, we have absolutely no problems at all. It's just literally the thought that the police wouldn't be allowed to move them on because it's public land, rather than any issue at all. As long as we would be able to ask the police, there is no problem.
Yeah, and I think, again, it's hard for me to sit here and say, oh yes, if you ring the police, they're definitely going to come out and they're definitely move them on, because it depends whether what's happening meets the threshold for being an issue that they'll be willing or allowed to cross over. But in the first case, always report it.
Yes, I think the reason was, I was told in front of the town hall was public land and nobody could move anyone on from there.
So it's a public highway. Is that what we're talking about? So I'm looking slightly.
That little square in front of the tourist information.
The cobbled bit?
Yes. Little, I was told at one point that was public land and nobody could be moved on from that. I mean, so no.
Technically it's supposed to be for buses, but Councillor keeps her own, yeah.
There is no issue of public land whether, you know, there's a no-go for any police authority. If there's antisocial behaviour going on, call the police and get them to deal with it. There is nowhere they can't actually get to. The area in front of the town hall belongs to the council, and that's the only restriction there. You know, I mean, there are no-go areas in the town for law enforcement authorities, so just be reassured about that. If you see antisocial behaviour or any way affected by it, call the police. And because, as we've already said, you know, they are data-driven. The more that they get, the more likely they are to turn up and help us deal with it.
Very good. Thank you. Next question. Just one sec. Just coming behind you. There we go.
Okay, thank you. On a similar subject, I see from this document, it says, you asked, can we have a greater police presence in town? What's been achieved? Increased community police presence in town on foot and patrol cars. I'd like to know which day of the week and approximately what time they arrive, because I haven't seen one. The only police car you see is the one with the blue lights going through the town at 50 miles an hour, and you don't see a police officer at all.
So I think the police would be reluctant to broadcast when they're going to be turning up. I'm not sure that would be particularly practical in their job. But to your broader point, I think it's all relative. I think when we were approaching them in the first case, we had quite a serious issue with antisocial behaviour, in particular in the town centre and so on and so forth. And we reached out to the police to try and get more of a presence. Now, I used to live in the town centre, and I can tell you there was definitely an increase. I couldn't give you a statistical, it was X, it was now Y, but there was definitely an increase. And when I was speaking with the, it wasn't the Police and Crime Commissioner, it was the sergeant who's in charge, I've forgotten his name. What they were doing deliberately is because Wallingford, its location is quite conveniently located between places. When he had officers who were finishing a job in one area, and they weren't going off to another, they were coming here and they were parking up and they were doing their reports in Wallingford. So just something as simple as, they could have done that at one place or could have done it at another, but actually just stopping off it, even if there's nothing happening, to finish up writing a report on what they've just done, just meant that suddenly there was a police car here for 5 minutes more than there had been previously. So yeah, I can't give you a quantifiable figure, but there was definitely a concerted effort to increase the presence.
And is it still ongoing?
I believe so, yeah. Unfortunately, we've had some quite high levels of police presence recently due to some events which is unrelated to that. But outside of that, yeah, there's definitely it's definitely at a higher level than it was when we first started the conversation, yeah.
Very good. Next question. Next comment.
I think too we need to remember what we were like when we were youngsters and where we all grew up and which corners we hung around in, and we have to keep a sense of proportion. But also I think we are a small community here, relatively speaking, and I don't think we have any really large numbers of very badly behaved youngsters in town. If there was some youth provision in the evenings perhaps, some of them would be happy to go there and play pool or table tennis or whatever, and that perhaps would reduce the number of youngsters that seem to be apparent hanging on corners and perhaps being a bit on the noisy side. But I don't think overall we really have a huge problem.
And I think it's worth bearing in mind that not all antisocial behaviour is from the youth either. To your point though, as far as the youth's concerned, I don't know if people are aware of this or who's, I'm just looking around the room. We have been helping facilitate the expansion of Train from Didcot, they've just recruited, this was just in the last week or so, someone by the name of Yasmin, who has links to Wallingford, who is being employed part-time to literally come in and work with, first of all in the school to get known, but also expanding out from that to try and go around to talk to the people who are here, to actually just engage with them, not on a I'm here to tell you off kind of basis, but just to actually engage with them, to get to know them, to kind of create that link in with some of the people who maybe don't want to talk to, I don't know, myself or the police or anyone else. So there is that group in particular coming in who've had quite a bit of experience in Didcot of doing a very similar job. And I'm hopeful that will also add another area to try and minimise.
Very good, and that kind of brings us on to the next topic, if we haven't finished this one. Have we any more crime, health? Yes, please. Just
on the topic of safety, I saw that there was going to be some sort of community plan for emergencies. I was just wondering whether it's been considered about whether disabled and vulnerable people have been considered in that plan, because it's a sort of national and international issue that disabled people are being left behind in climate emergency planning. And I'm keen that doesn't happen in Wallingford.
Any particular councillor want to take?
So yes, that is something we are with. It's at the very early stages at this point. There is a process, I always forget if it's OCC or SODC. I'm going to OCC. And so we're starting to put the plan together for that. It hasn't gone as far as we'd hoped by this point, but you are raising a valid point that, yes, your input from the accessible groups should be a valid part of that. So by all means, either if you give us your contact details, there's a working group being set up to facilitate that. So if you'd like to be part of that working group, that would be more than welcome to join us with that.
Very good. Okay, I'm going to, because I haven't had many hands go up for a minute, move on to the next topic, which will be about community facilities, particularly for young people. Community facilities including facilities for young people. Any questions, statements, observations? Anything from the radio, just so I know what's coming, Liam?
Which one have I got? This one? No, it was mainly regarding, we mainly covered it during the Regal discussion, so I think it's already been covered.
This might be the ideal opportunity to ask about the development of the Bullcroft and when we can expect to see some changes. Certainly with improved lighting and paths, they're looking very tired and tatty. and what the plan is about charging for the tennis courts in the Bullcroft.
So tennis court charging, that would be you, Steve, would it?
And the paths and the development.
And paths and lighting.
Well, and the replacement of the facilities.
And the replacement of the facilities being which particular bits? All of them? Or the whole thing, yeah. Steve, do you want to give a...
I'll do my best, Deborah. So the tennis one I'll cover first. So I'm delighted that we've managed to get a grant to refurbish the tennis courts because they haven't been sustainable in the current state. So we've got just over £50,000 to refurbish them, and they start next week. There is going to be a charging mechanism for the tennis courts, and that is all about the town being able to sustain them on a go-forward basis. There's never been a pot of money put aside to maintain them. So it's all about sort of sustainability of keeping them at a standard that they need to be. So we've worked with the Lawn Tennis Association that have worked with government to get people back into tennis. And we're working with the National Tennis Association who are going to be managing them for us. The cost of the tennis is £45 a year for a family membership, so for a household.
People listening on the radio, if we could just wait for the microphone, because those people aren't able to hear.
So let me repeat the question. The challenge was Hithercroft has tennis courts which are paid for, and this is taking away free tennis from the citizens of Wallingford. That's right. Yeah. Just let Steve respond.
Yeah, I suppose it is not a good place that we are now moving to a charging mechanism. But for me, it's about sustaining the tennis courts on a go-forward basis. It is something, though, that the Town Council can look at on a go-forward basis if we want to subsidise the tennis into the future. So what we haven't had historically is any data, who's using the tennis courts, when are they using them, and what age groups are using them. With the new access system, we'll be able to get data. I haven't had a huge backlash, or I haven't heard of a huge backlash at this moment, but that might not happen until actually the charging mechanism comes into place. So once that happens, we may find actually there's a louder voice about the tennis was free and now it's chargeable. So I think we just need to go on that journey. If we find that there's more people that want it, it needs to come back to council and we can revisit the charging mechanism. But it is, pay per play and an annual membership.
So that's point one.
Yeah.
Point two was lighting and paths on the Bullcroft.
So when you say pay per play and an annual membership, so you pay your annual membership and then every time you want to play you pay on top?
No.
No,
Okay.
so it's not pay per
Sorry,
play?
yeah, no, so just to clarify, there's an annual membership which is for a household, and there's an hourly pay per play which is £6 per hour. If you don't do the annual membership, yeah.
Okay, thank you. So point two was lighting and paths, Steve.
Lighting in paths. So that's something that the Bullcroft Trust have asked the Bullcroft Working Group to look into, making sure that the parks and open spaces are safe for people to move around. I don't know the answer to that at the moment, but that's been a request for the working group to look at lighting, but we obviously need to make sure from an environmental perspective that environmental and a safety perspective, that we're not lighting paths so that there's dark areas that people can then watch people walking down the lighted area. So I'm sure there's some experts which we haven't looked into that can advise us on that. It's not unique to Wallingford, but that's something that we've been asked to look into. The third point was around the play area and what's happening with the redevelopment, which I suppose the paths will fall into. So currently there's four activities or projects within the Bullcroft redevelopment. One is the new pavilion, 2 is the new play area, 3 is the steps and bridges to protect the Saxon fortifications at the north end of the town, and the 4th one is the adult functional gym outside equipment. So there's been lots of consultation and meetings about that. Currently where we're up to, a week on Monday, I think that's on the 25th of this month, the archaeological digs start to happen. So there's 2 projects. It's currently in planning, 2 projects left to do. One is the archaeological digs, so there's going to be 12 pits dug around the Bullcroft Park where the new pavilion and play area in paths are going to go into. So that's happening from the 25th for a week. And on the Wednesday of that week, there's going to be an open day, and they'll invite schools and others, members of the public, can go along to hear what they found during those archaeological digs. We have already had the resistivity and the magnetometry surveys done. So that's happening. And the other one is the bat hibernation survey that needed to happen from November last year through to the end of March this year, which is on the pavilion specifically. So once those 2 activities are done, those reports will go back into the planning portal, and it will then go out for another 21-day consultation. I'm hoping that we've then jumped through enough hoops that we haven't got to jump through any more, that then within 8 weeks they'll give a planning decision from SODC of whether we can move forward with that. And then we can move into how we're funding it through S106 and varying grants that we can look to get.
Any extra information? Need any? Yeah, please.
Thanks, Nick. Steve, just to add to that, the other thing of the tennis courts is we're going to be part of the LTA's free park tennis, which means 11 o'clock on a weekend morning, there are free sessions for all ages, all experiences, run by local volunteers as well.
There'll be a weekly activity of free tennis for those that want to have free tennis and free coaching. So there will be a coaching opportunity, and it's free once a week.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Any more questions on this area, provision of community facilities? Any? Three sweeps normally does it. So, one more. Yep, please.
We do have a wonderful advantage here with the sports park at Hithercroft. I sometimes overlooked when we're talking about youth provision. There's an awful lot down there for young people. I mean, okay, not everyone needs, I mean, I certainly wasn't as a youngster attracted to sports parks, but a lot of people are, and there's this huge provision down there, so that shouldn't be overlooked. There's also very good facilities there. There's a big hall that it can be hired, and so on and so forth. And they also need supporting. It's run by a trust. So just throw that in the mix.
Thank you. So I'm going to take us on to the last topic, for which we're in good time, unless somebody has one more question. Vicky, your question.
It was more just an observation about the Sports Trust. So yeah, it is a fantastic facility. It has got a lot of activities. It is wall to wall at present at the weekend when there's clubs on. Like you can't move for all the people there. So I'd say that's pretty much at capacity at the weekends. So with all the new housing, what clubs are those children going to join when it seems like it's kind of packed to the rafters in each of those rooms when the rugby's on?
Okay. Thank you both. So I'm going to move on to the last topic, which is retail and economy. We've got one question from the radio.
So there's actually a few questions, but they break down into two categories. One is what, if anything, is the council doing to help bring new retailers into the town that are not charity shops, barbers or coffee shops? And Dan, if you want to take the opportunity once more to answer the question about what's happening with the redevelopment of KP.
I'll take the last one first, and rather than some of you may well have seen things on social media, I'm going to avoid answering that in this forum because there is actually quite a strong mandate on councils not to use our roles within council to promote anything outside. So, but I'm aware of the posts and whatnot that have been going on. So, yeah.
Is it see other posts?
I will address that with a different hat on at another point. Going back to the former point, though, what is the council doing to decide who comes into the town, I guess, is the question, and to promote and to dissuade and whatnot. The simple fact is, in most cases, we don't have any control over that. We have certain premises that the town council owns, and we get to decide as a council who goes into those premises, but that is as a landlord, not as the council itself. There are some rules as to what types of properties can be in what types of buildings, but even them, they're a lot more relaxed than they ever used to be. You've got another question? So I think the simple fact is that we are always happy to see new businesses coming to the town. We want to have as few empty premises as possible because that means more opportunity for people of the town to shop, to get what they need while they're here. But there is very little that we can do from a council point of view to dictate that.
And the final question we had online was regarding possibly when there are known busy periods in town, the possibility of enacting some sort of Bunkfest-style park and ride system to help alleviate parking in the town and to help access to the town centre.
Okay, we'll add that onto the board. I don't have an answer to that. It's not one that's been brought forward to myself. I know that the meeting can feel like it goes on a while, but I don't think we're quite at Christmas. I did see there was a hand over here, I think. Yeah.
I just wanted to ask about empty properties. I know you've not got the say over which kind of business goes into them, but I wondered if you had any sway with landlords who have a property lying empty, neither up for sale nor for rent. Have you any way of contacting them to find out what their plans are, encourage them to either let go of the property or get it opened?
It's a good question. I think some properties are obviously a lot easier to find out about than others. Beyond that, I'll go back to what I was saying earlier. I guess we don't have any control over it, so it's not as if we could go in and demand that they, do something with it or get out. But yeah, I guess we can act as a magnifier of the voice just to ask.
You could ask the question.
Oh, no, by all means, yes. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. If nothing else, at least we might find out, because with some of the properties you end up finding out that actually there is a plan. There is things being worked on, that it's being held up because of X or Y. And so some things look like there's nothing going on, but actually it's all ticking along in the background. So yeah, if we can find out that information, I don't see how it would hurt.
You've got places like the Indian restaurant in the High Street, which has been shut for at least 5 years, probably longer. B0, nothing's happening there. That's been shut for over a year. And a number of other properties which have been apparently abandoned. I'm sure they're not, but nobody's doing anything with them for quite a few years. That's the sort of scenario where I was thinking, can the town council find out who the landlords are or the owners and just make an inquiry?
It's perhaps a bit unfair of me as he is a new councillor, but there is a new councillor, very new councillor, who has quite vociferously taken upon themselves for that to be something that they're going to focus on. So I will no doubt have a conversation with them and maybe set them a little challenge.
Look forward to hearing about it.
Please.
Yeah, I've got just two small points. One relating to that last comment is, in my misspent youth, I watched some daytime television, and I seem to remember that district councils often have an empty properties officer who make it their business to chase up things like that. So it might not be a town council thing, but it could possibly be SODC. Perhaps that's something that Catherine or James could look at. My other point is not related to properties, but there's a little debate going on this very evening about the lack of cash points in the town. I know it's not something we can do much about as a council, I think, but perhaps we could lobby for it somehow.
Yeah, no, I know there is obviously issues to do with the cash machines. Yeah, I don't really have an answer to that.
Just going to come over.
I do, but not.
Please.
Put this hat on.
I'm just going to reiterate what I said to Matey in the corner earlier.
If you could just lift the microphone.
I'm just going to reiterate what I said to Matey in the corner earlier. I mean, I've been coming over regularly for the last few years to escape the city up the road for a diversion. I've had peace over here, decent shopping, and proper streets it used to be, like from it is, and your festivals and your bands are, some rest of it. I come over here, I mean, I don't want for anything, it's just a different atmosphere. We keep it out and supporting anything, because my kind of shopping normally involves a self-drive Arctic.
Okay. Thank you. Please.
I just wanted to share an idea that of somewhere I saw in Scotland. It's a East Dunbartonshire local gift card, and it made me think of something that could be trialled in Wallingford or somebody might be interested in. And basically they had a big stand in the big supermarket in Tesco and several shops where you could just pick up the card, load any amount of money on it at the cash point, and then that card gets spent in lots of the local shops. It says on here the freedom to choose from your region's independent and high street stores, restaurants, bars, attractions and venues. And I thought this could be a really good way of encouraging people to gift something that will be spent back in the town in lots of the independent places. So just wanted to share that.
And I can tell you that the same new councillor I mentioned earlier was scribbling away in his little book as you were talking there. So I'll give him another little task as well.
Thank you. Yeah, one more question from the...
I'll rephrase it, as I know some of the answer myself. But the boathouse, is there an update regarding the council property, which is the boathouse, which has obviously been affected by flooding recently?
Not that I believe is outside of confidential at this point. There's clearly work that needs to be done there. There is a conversation going on with the tenants. I don't think that's a place to bring into public at the moment because it involves other matters.
Okay. Next question.
I just want to say I find it very amusing when we mention things like coffee shops and we all sigh and shoulders go down, but I can tell you that the new Italian coffee shop 900 that opened is a total gift to Wallingford. Everything in it is fabulous and fresh and done right there. And if you want to have breakfast there, you've got to get there before 10. You'll never get a table. So that's a plus.
Good. Next and other related topics. Or if we finish these official topics, are there any other areas we should have considered under the headings or we want extra? Steve.
Sorry, I had one question from a resident yesterday. I did send it late yesterday to Pete, who may or may not know the answer to it. So the question was on St George's Road, so I suppose it's about getting around, really. So the school put in the car park into St George's Road for teacher parking. I understand that we're in talks with the school to look at whether the car parking can be used at other times, but the specific resident asked the question about there used to be a lay-by the entrance to it that then got filled in because of health and safety. The issue is that everybody still parks on said lay-by that's now grass, and it's become one, a bit of an eyesore, and two, it sort of defeats the object of taking the lay-by away. So, yeah, is there anything that we can do to, one, either stop people parking on it, which I don't think is an option, or two, can it go back to being a lay-by?
Yes, I actually remember, so this was before I was on the cabinet, so it was in the previous administration. I remember going to the meeting at which that was considered and arguing very strongly that given it was that road was about to become a 20-mile-an-hour road, there was absolutely no reason to remove the lay-by, and also arguing that our officers had done a particularly lousy job at negotiating use on land that actually the county council owned for local people to use the car park, because I think it was arranged for just during Bunkfest or something, and that was a real missed opportunity. So I'd be very happy to take cudgels up again and see if I can get the lay-by put back that they insisted on taking away. That sounds like a great idea.
Related point with that, just wait for the mic to kick in. So one of the things I'm conscious that does contribute to the traffic and the parking on there is to do with the football. I've been working with the Cromarsh and Wallingford youth and the headmaster up at Wallingford School, and we're approaching the trust to try and get it so that, especially on Sundays when the games are on and whatnot, that they can utilise that car park. It did highlight that it's a vastly more complicated process than you think it should be. Apparently, under their obligations of the trust, there's all sorts to do with their insurance and so on and so forth, which is why it can't just be an open use car park. So it has to be, so Bunkfest, for example, I believe, actually has gone on as a joint leaseholder with the school to the trust. It's that kind of level of, I don't want to say bureaucracy, it's the wrong term, but it's not straightforward. But there is work going on, again, something else trying to facilitate, to at least bring that bit of the parking across. But yeah, that was a related point.
Thank you. One question more from radio.
More of a comment, but it was in support of the prior discussion regarding the pharmacy and the petition. So I just wanted to voice that, but also, Catherine, if you could come over and tell us what it is so we can share it with the people that have shown an interest. The pharmacy petition. Thank you.
So, unless I have any raised hands, I'm going to say that part, that is the 6 topics. If there are any other business or any other topics, I'm going to hand back to Dan to wrap it up. Sorry, one question.
It's not a question or another topic, but this is the first time I've been able to come to one of these meetings because I've been at work on previous years. And I've learnt so much, and I just wanted to say thank you because I'm really impressed by the breadth of knowledge that people have come up with sort of in response to spontaneous questions, and I realise that is just the tip of the iceberg, that people put so much time into being counsellors, and I love living in Wallingford and I feel really privileged to do that, and so thank you for that. And to people who aren't councillors as well for being part of the community, and I feel fortunate. Thank you.
Thank you. Here, here.
Yeah, and I think to kind of follow on from that, to thank everyone who has attended. This is only our second year doing this, and I remember the one prior to this. The way we used to do it was very much just stand there and just talk at maybe one or two people who turned up. And we talk about what we'd done, and that was about it. We don't always get everything right. We've talked earlier about the by-election and what went wrong there and so on and so forth. But I can hand on heart say that the people who stand and the people who are working really do care about the town and really are putting a lot of time and effort in trying to improve our contribution to what the town does. Everything takes longer than you think it should. There is a lot of running through treacle, but I can definitely tell you that people are trying, and people are trying to do their best for that. Yeah, thanks you all for attending, but I think the person I specifically want to highlight is Nick for guiding us through this evening. A round of applause for Nick, please. It is appreciated. I think we've tried to get to everyone, and obviously there have been some differing opinions, and that is all healthy. That's all important. We don't want to sit in an echo chamber and just listen to everyone say that the one idea is great and whatnot. So Nick being able to bring that conversation through is very, very helpful. You're gesturing at me. It's on there. I'm getting to it. I'm following the list religiously after missing point number 2 earlier, so yeah. Thank you to Liam and Wallingford Radio as well. Obviously, first time we've done this, it's another element. Aside from allowing the people who are unable to attend to contribute, this is all being recorded as well. Excerpts are going to be broadcast on Wallingford Radio. We're also going to get the audio put up on the website. So if you know anyone who specifically interested in some of the sections, they don't have to sit through the whole lot. They can go to the bit that they want to listen to, and they can also feedback. And then they can also, off the back of that, still, and I mentioned this earlier, all our contact details are on the website. You can email us, you can phone us. That conversation carries on. This is just part of that. So if someone didn't make it here today and suddenly they've got a gleaming kind of, oh, I wish I'd been there to say this, say it to us. We'll see what we can do. And also, you'll have noticed, we've had Luke and we've had Jen up here as well, making notes on this flipboard. That's all going to be collated, and we're going to have a version of that put up onto the town council. So people who don't want to sit and listen to the whole thing, there will be a summation of this conversation on the website as well. I've mentioned this is only the second year we've done this way. I do think it is better than what we had before. But we always want to look at where it can go and what can be done better. I mentioned at the beginning about the feedback forms. Please do fill those in. Several people have mentioned things to me, for example, as I've been wandering around talking to people. I'll do my best to retain that, but some things fall out as other things go in. So if it's written down, it will give our team a lot better chance of making sure it's all taken on board. I've got a hand up from Jen. Okay, so there are pens at the back, and there's a QR code on the thing if you want to scan it and do it at another point. Yeah, it should only take a few minutes to complete, and I'll just highlight a few other things that have been mentioned throughout the thing. Councillor Barlow and others have mentioned about the bathing water status. I think that closes on Monday. I'm looking for someone to nod at me. Sunday, sorry. Should only take a few minutes. And again, it's something the Wallingford Town Council did in conjunction with SODC and the charity Thames 21. It's furthest it's ever been, and we're hopeful that with support from the people in the community, it will get over the line. Neighbourhood plan. I'm going to look at someone to give me a date when that is complete. 6th of April, that's been extended out. Again, there's a QR code there. That covers so many topics that we've talked about, and is a really important document that we're trying to keep up and running. I think those are the main things, just to summate. But yeah, thank you all for coming, and I'll release you into the wild just under the 3-hour limit that we set ourselves. So, thank you all.